It's time to shift gears again. I'm going to stay up here, and we'll be joined shortly by Candice, Bergen, and Diane English. But first, you should watch this clip.
Today, in a speech focusing on the American family, Vice President Dan Quayle had some strong comments on what he termed a poverty of values, citing Murphy Brown as an example. The speech, part of a West Coast campaign swing, was delivered in San Francisco to the Commonwealth Club of California.
It doesn't help matters when primetime TV has Murphy Brown.
He is talking about you.
Epitomizes today's intelligent, highly paid professional woman, mocking the importance of fathers by bearing a child alone and calling it just another lifestyle choice.
Good evening and welcome to FYI. For your information tonight, we focus on a subject that has become the center of a national debate. To begin, we turn to reporter Murphy Brown.
Thank you, Jim. The American family and American values. This reporter has a unique perspective on the topic because in a recent speech, Vice President Quayle used me as an example of the poverty of values in this country and implied that I was a poor role model for our nation's youth. While some might argue that attacking my status as a single mother was nothing more than a cynical bit of election year posturing, I prefer to give the Vice President the benefit of the doubt. These are difficult times for our country, and in searching for the causes of our social ills, we could choose to blame the media, or the Congress, or an administration that's been in power for 12 years, or we could blame me. And while I will admit that my inability to balance a checkbook may have had something to do with the collapse of the savings and loan industry, I doubt that my status as a single mother has contributed all that much to the breakdown of Western civilization. But tonight's program should not be simply about blame. The Vice President says he felt it was important to open a dialogue about family values, and on that point, we agree. Unfortunately, it seems that for him, the only acceptable definition of a family is a mother, a father, and children. And in a country where millions of children grow up in non-traditional families, that definition seems painfully unfair. Perhaps it's time for the Vice President to expand his definition and recognize that whether by choice or circumstance, families come in all shapes and sizes, and ultimately, what really defines a family is commitment, caring, and love. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to some people who might not fit into the Vice President's vision of a family, but they consider themselves families nonetheless. They work, they struggle, they hope for the kind of life for their children that we all want for our children. And these are the people we should be paying attention to. Welcome to FYI. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Mary Bailey, and this is my daughter, Cameron.
Hello. And you, ma'am?
I'm Nadine, and this is my son, Manuel.
Hello. And you, sir?
Hi, I'm Jim, and this is my son, Shannon.
And you?
And I'm Julie, and this is Jacqueline.
Please welcome the extraordinary Diane English, creator, writer, and producer of the groundbreaking comedy Murphy Brown, and its star, actress Candice Bergen. Hi. Me too. Hi. Hi, Diane. Hi. Whatever you guys want. Go here. All right. I'm so easygoing that it's whatever you guys want. So that's such an extraordinary clip and such an extraordinary response, and then just to say extraordinary a third time, as you do with comedy. It was 1992, which doesn't feel like it should be that long ago.
It feels like we're due for another one, though.
But it's like when I saw that again, it's such a reminder of what everyone's mindsets were and about what a family is, about a single mother, about the character you played, about a Murphy Brown, who for some people might seem kind of, especially men, strident, and I know, I'll stop my monologue soon, I swear to God. And you started in 1988, so it was even worse when you started. So the question is, first Diane, and then Candice. So you wrote Murphy Brown with what in mind? To shake up the world, or it was just a truth that you were writing?
Well, we were in the right place at the right time, I think, because in 1988 we had just had 8 years of Ronald Reagan, and we were looking at another 4 years coming up of George W. Bush. And so, you know, us Dems didn't have a voice, so we decided to, you know, create one. And
so that was conscious.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you know, I'm a comedy writer, so my main motivation is always to write an entertaining show that makes you laugh, but also I really like to have an emotional and social and sometimes political underpinning to my shows as well. So it all sort of came together in a very short period of time and created this woman who I thought would be a really interesting character for the time that we were living in, and also a character that I had not seen on television before.
Well, it definitely was a character we hadn't seen on television before, yes.
And I just add that the network, which was run by many administrations past, suggested that Murphy not be played by a woman who, in my case, I was 41 or 40, and that she be played by Heather Locklear, and that she be returning from a spa rather than the Betty Ford Institute. So they were just ready to take the teeth out of it immediately.
That's all the teeth. Wow. So, and when you read it, Candice, I know you were struck, you read it on a plane, and you kept saying,
we still had payphones on airplanes. And I said, oh, I have to do this. To me, it was the best of the 1940s comedies, the best writing of a sophistication and a wit, and sometimes it was really bawdy and raucous.
Right.
And the character of Murphy was really, to me, irresistible.
Yes, yes. But were you aware of what you were sort of taking on, either of you? I mean, you read a really well-written, three-dimensional woman, and the likes of which we hadn't really seen on TV before. But were you aware of what you were taking on in terms of starting up controversy and?
No, I don't think we were looking to be controversial. And in fact, with the example of the clip that you showed, I just thought, you know, we were in our 4th season. Let's give Murphy the biggest challenge she's ever had. I mean, this was a woman who couldn't keep a plant alive. And so another human being in her life to care for. And it never occurred to me that it would explode into this huge political debate that really changed the course of an election. Somebody came up to me, somebody in the press, and said, "Are you ready for what's going to happen?" I said, "What are you talking about? It's 1992. She's a well-off, intelligent, single woman who accidentally got pregnant, and it can happen."
With her ex-husband.
With her ex-husband, and she's going to have this baby. What's the big deal? And then, you know, a few months later, the big deal became the biggest deal. You know, we were on the front page of the New York Times trading barbs with the Vice President of the United States. It's like, I'm in a Preston Sturges movie. How did this happen?
Well, it was a beautifully written response and beautifully performed.
A beautifully written response, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was always such a privilege to work on this show.
But did you ever feel sort of stressed out about, well, like, you know, this controversy, of course, was huge, like you just said, but did it sort of stress you out or make you nervous or feel like?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, you're not talking about getting into a tiff with, you know, a network executive. It's the leader of the free world, you know? and so when all of this happened, Howard Stringer, who was running CBS at the time and had been head of the news division, called me up and he said, listen, just make one statement, we'll put it out to the press, and then take the summer off, don't say anything, and let everybody else jump into the debate. And it was really good advice, because that summer, that's all anybody was ever talking about.
And it was twinned with these campaigns. It was a presidential campaign year, and it became the Bush Quail one of their campaign platforms, which was family values, and then Clinton took it. So they were, well, my family values are, and I just pulled the covers over my head. I don't want to, this is just way too much.
It was.
Yeah, it was too much. It was a little scary. And then when the episode aired, which was the response, the anticipation of what Murphy was going to say to Dan Quayle in response to this was so enormous. We had 70 million people watch that episode. 70. I mean, it was remarkable. It was an hour-long episode.
And I'm curious, though, the response, what was the response to the response? Probably New York and LA were cheering.
Yeah.
And then,
well, we started having security at taping nights. We had metal detectors because we started getting threats.
that's stressful.
Yeah. And having just heard what stress can do to you.
Well, I mean, look, I think it's anyway, for women, it's stressful anyway when you have, you know, a family and children, which take up a part of your brain, and then you're working, you know, as most women have to do, much less, you know, get to do something that they love so much. I mean, it's already stressful, and then your life is threatened for it. It seems like a lot. My goodness. So you didn't feel like, I mean, were you ever thinking, Candice, like, maybe we should lighten up now? Or should we take a step back from?
You know, the train had left.
Yeah.
And so really, you had to sort of ride the train to its destination.
Yeah.
And then we changed into something frothier. But
Right. But now you're coming back.
Yeah.
And I mean,
will you guys be following?
What? Us?
Yeah.
No, we won't.
That's
You're
what
too
we
young.
said.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We said,
Yeah,
no, we're
except-
not going to ever do that.
Someone's calling me. Right, except you said yes.
Yes.
So-
Yeah, we did say yes. It took a while. You know, Mr. Peter Roth out there, he was pretty persistent.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
And then, you know, I mean, we had this election, and we were all hoping, you know, that it would get better.
Is that what made you think twice about? I mean, it made you rethink maybe we should do it?
Oh, yeah,
Because
absolutely. Because a lot of shows are coming back, but ours has a real reason to come back. You know, we've always been a show that had something to say about their social and political scene, and I think there's a lot to be said now. You know, I don't think we're interested particularly in doing what the late night guys are doing, you know, which is, you know, the one Trump joke after the other. But I think we're particularly interested in the role of the press.
Right.
We are the press and on our show, and so things have really changed. You know, Walter Cronkite used to be the most trusted man in America, and he never expressed an opinion. That was the golden rule in broadcasting. You could have one privately, but not on the air. But now you've got all these cable shows, and you've got, you know, who's a journalist, who's a pundit, who's just a commentator with an opinion.
Right.
You've got the internet, you've got social media. And so to take these characters that we left in 1998, where there wasn't even an internet, you know, and there was no cell phones that weren't the size of toaster ovens, and to take them into this era now and put them there was really interesting to us. So.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, because this was a news program, and now there's almost no such thing.
Yeah, where do you go for the
So-
truth? You know, where do you get your news that's not just somebody's opinion, or alternative facts or fake news? So you know, that's actually the title of our first episode, Fake News.
Oh, that's great. And so we'll be watching Murphy struggle with this non-news environment?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to give too much away.
Oh,
you
right,
know.
shoot. God, we weren't just, you know, I won't tell anyone. Just, I'm curious. I'm such an idiot.
She has a grown son now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so handsome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I know.
we cast this guy, it's like, such a handsome, charming kid.
And you've started shooting already?
No, we shoot our first one August 3rd.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, we're on the air in September.
Wow, that's exciting.
Right before the midterm elections.
That's good timing. All right, so, well, I think I had something else I wanted to ask about. I know, I keep drilling down on this, but, all right, never mind.
No, go on, ask it. Let me see your cards.
There you go.
All right,
Can I just add that
Rewrite.
Diane asked for, from Peter and Roth and Warner Brothers and CBS, she asked for the shoot dates to be as close as possible to the air dates. So, because the way news is happening the last year, it's hard and fast, and you didn't want the show to be out of date before it was even on the air. So we're shooting it 3 weeks ahead of the air date,
Oh,
which
wow.
is very close.
Well, we're digital now. You know, we used to, and you did too, shoot on film.
Yeah.
And then you'd lock a picture and that was it, you couldn't change it. But now with digital, you can plop something in at the very last minute. You know?
That's true. Yeah, so you can be more current, which means immediate now.
Well, we got 14 headlines a day, and
Yeah.
you know, we're keeping this whiteboard with the names of the departed from, and we got this pool going. You know, who's it going to be? You know, I can't believe Pruitt is still there, but I've got him on the board. You know, he's my pick for this week. Ty Cobb was gone this morning, so, you know, you might have been here, but
Yeah, we were here. What happened?
Ty
we
Cobb,
get the news?
President's personal
Oh.
lawyer, Ty Cobb, he went, I resigned.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So that seems like, how will you be able to manage that? Because you're right, it's every single day.
Yeah.
There's some enormous, he knows how to create a newsquake,
Yeah.
stealing Heartquake.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's you know, like we used to do. You know, we were very topical, and because my writers are so smart, you could look ahead and almost predict. You know, if you're a good story writer, you know, what's going to be the next plot point? You know.
And sometimes they did predict it.
Yeah.
Sometimes the shows were written just in advance of things happening, Senate hearings. I mean, and they were like, how did they know? But it's an attuned quality, and a writer on Murphy can't just be your average great comedy writer. They have to be extremely well educated and hyper well informed to follow what's going on. And it makes the show so interesting to do because you're learning something every show.
Right. And Candice, how involved are you in, you know, the producing part of it?
I don't write a word.
Right.
I don't have anything. But I mean, I'm so involved in the show, and I was very excited when we finally decided that, well, actually it was very quick, thanks to Peter, but I'm as involved as I can be with life interceding.
And now what about, because now it's not so, you know, outrageous that there's a single mother who had a child on her own, and so that's not going to, like, be a big issue, or
maybe it will.
I see. Interesting.
You know, it's interesting that exactly 10 years after Murphy gave birth to her son, your character of Rachel on your show was in the same situation and was a single mother who had a baby.
Right, and
Not
nobody
a
batted an
peep
eye.
out of anybody.
And my character was carrying triplets for her brother and his wife as a surrogate. Right, no one bat an eye, I don't think.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right, thank you. Thank you for allowing my character to expose a certain dysfunction in her own family.
Phoebe.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well. Is there anything
You
else
had a question about mental health.
I did. I was going to
Yeah.
relate it to, I mean, because you did a lot, you know, even that last season, Murphy had breast cancer, and I read that you had heard from women saying that, yeah, laughing is a big part of the healing process that we leave out, because laughing does help a lot with stress and everything else and healing.
Yeah, that was a really risky area to, you know, tackle on a comedy, but it was our last season, and we were there to make some noise. And again, it was giving this character another major challenge in her life.
And was that the first time we saw a beloved character have breast cancer on a show?
I don't know, but I can't remember one
happening before?
Who did.
I know that the show Murphy having breast cancer resulted in a stratospheric rise in women getting mammograms.
First mammograms, yeah. I mean, it was amazing.
Right.
And we did an enormous amount of homework because we felt such a responsibility. We had to get it right. And so we went to the Johnson Breast Center, and we really got immersed in the whole area. And one of the things that one of the doctors showed us was talking about stress, that he was making a study of mammograms where the woman would have the first, you know, showing of breast cancer, and then he said 6 to 8 years prior to that showing up in the woman was some trauma in her life, whether it was divorce, loss of a loved one, and he was documenting this, you know, and that's how powerful, you know, stress is, as we just heard in the previous panel. But, and we also talked a tremendous amount to breast cancer survivors who said laughter is the key to getting through it. And I think we found a really nice balance, you know.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So.
It was the most emotionally resonant season because we had because everybody on the crew and the cast had in some way been impacted by breast cancer. And we had, as actors and extras, many survivors. And I would be in Bergdorf, and a young girl would come up to me with tears in her eyes. She'd watched it with her mother, and it really opened the discussion for families and for the disease. You know?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because it's a show that's meant to be entertaining, and we have fun, and then it ends up resonating on so many other levels for everyone who's watching it. Yeah.
Well, I think the best shows are subversive.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. Yeah. But what were you going to say also about mental health?
Oh, just, you know, I think we're all a bit in an odd place mentally these days, you know. It's hard to talk to your friends about what's going on in the world or your family. Thanksgiving every year at my house is just rough, boy. It's very rough. Because, you know, it's very emblematic of how divided the country is.
Yeah.
And I find there's more road rage, and people are triggered very quickly now, and somebody just sent me a gift of Oprah and Deepak's meditation podcast so that you can listen to. And it's working. I recommend it.
Yeah. Well, we do, I think, we do have more in common with each other than we assume, but we get so focused on our little devices that show us only the things and opinions and thoughts that we want to hear and see, and we're too afraid to change our mind.
And social media is feeding right into that.
Right.
Because you follow those people who you agree with, and then your feed is just filled with more of the same, and you're in your own echo chamber. And it's very, very hard for people to have a conversation with each other. And that's just something we're going to talk about in terms of episodes on our show, is how difficult it's become to have differences of opinion and still be respectful of each other. So
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of fun with that.
That's great. I mean, because even the news is, I mean, that's the main culprit.
Yeah.
Is that it's either the impeach Trump network or the Trump is never wrong.
Yeah.
And he's a victim.
Yeah.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, it's one or the other. So people are in their camps, and there's, it's so that's a rich area.
But what camp will, it's FYI, right? What camp?
Well, I can't say anything.
Oh.
Can't say it. Don't make any assumptions.
Oops, I did it again. Okay. I keep stepping in it. What's the first show about? And if I just keep asking the stupid questions, how does it end? What's the last episode going to be like? I think that's what we all want to know. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
we're really excited
Thank you.
to see more.